Hello and welcome to this video on Christian culture. My name is Alexa and I'm the youth coordinator at St. Paul's. This is the second video in a series designed to help families and individuals find ways to stay connected to our Christian faith while we're at home. If you haven't seen the first video, I'm going to link it in the description box below. It's only 6.5 minutes, but it gives a bit more background on the 5 aspects of religious formation as identified by the Reverend Dr. Karen Marie Youst, whose research is the basis for this video series, so I do recommend watching that one. It also covers the topic of images, and today we're going to talk about spiritual practices. Okay, so today we're talking about spiritual practices, or I like to think of them as intentional acts of connection with God. Dr. Youst describes them as animating and embodying faithful lives. And this video is more of a how to start a spiritual practice as opposed to explaining different ones and how to do them, because there is a wealth of knowledge of that online, and once you determine what you like to do or what you might want to try, you can find that information really easily. But this is more about how do you even start, how do you pick what you're going to try, and then how do you stick with it. It is a new year, it's January still, so we're at the beginning of 2021, and it's often a time when people start making resolutions and adding new goals and adding new activities into their schedules. So this is a perfect time to reevaluate your current spiritual practices if you have any, and if you don't, this is an excellent time to try some out. I think people get a little bit overwhelmed and stressed when they think about the words spiritual practices. It sounds kind of heavy and big, and maybe it doesn't produce images of something that seems like it would fit with your personality or with your daily routines. But this is why I want you to take a few moments to just get to know yourself a little bit. Here are some questions you can consider. Am I a morning person? Would I want to wake up an extra 10, 15, 30 minutes early to do a spiritual practice? If that sounds horrible to you, don't do that, because you probably won't stick with it. Maybe you're a night person, or maybe you like shorter, smaller things that you can do throughout the day instead of spending one giant chunk of time at the beginning, end, or middle of your day. Do you enjoy quiet? Do you like to move your body, or do you prefer to be still? These are the kinds of things I want you to check in with yourself about as you think about what type of spiritual practice you might want to add into your routines. You've probably heard the rumor that it takes 21 days to set a new habit. And while that's something good to think about, that it does take time, 21 days is actually a little bit short, and it does vary by person and personality. It actually takes people a few months to set a new habit, so don't give up. Even if something feels a little awkward at first, that's natural. If it's something you absolutely dislike, maybe try something else. But if it's just a little uncomfortable and you're not used to it, just stick it out for a little bit to try it and see if it might become a really useful spiritual practice for you. Another important aspect of habit forming is tracking and accountability. And this can look very different whether it's a personal accountability or you're involving your family to hold you accountable. There are many different ways. You might decide to make a separate calendar in your phone for spiritual practices, and then you can set alarms and reminders, something that will just tell you, hey, it's time to check in with God. You could also download tracking sheets if you really like the physical act of checking something off. You can download tracking sheets online for free. You could also make your own, like on a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, and that way you could also share it with others in your family or friends so that you can also hold each other accountable, because you can see if you've done your spiritual practice that day or that week. A really simple example is using Post-it notes around your home, and just stick one on your bedside table if you want to remember to say a bedtime prayer, or stick one on your bathroom mirror if that's the first thing you see or the last thing you see during the day to remind you to do your spiritual practice. Okay, and that's all there is to it. This is the Try It moment. Linked in the description of this video is a downloadable document that's a springboard of a list of practices that you could try based on your personal preferences, just to help you get started. So it'll have things like, do you love to journal and write? Then there's a couple examples of spiritual practices for that type of personality trait, someone who likes to journal, likes to write, or likes to read. So something like a devotional with built-in journaling space for reflection or prayer. There are also additional ideas and helpful information about how to set a space for spiritual practices. Those are all included on our Pinterest board, and that information is also in the description box below. So I highly encourage you to check that out if you're a little bit stuck with which spiritual practice might fit with your personality. There are also some ideas for family spiritual practices. So if you want to do something together that involves everyone, there are a couple ideas there as well. So check it out below and let us know in the comments if this is helpful, what you've learned, what's working for you, and we'll see you next time.